This happened a year ago when I was working as a pizza deliverer. I often work late at night, and despite other women being sexually harassed on the job every now and then, I never felt very nervous when delivering. Anyways, this happened at around 11 p.m. I was delivering to a house, and as I arrive, I park out in front. Now there are two things you should know from here. One, the pizza is on the passenger side, and two, this is an Australian derelict suburb. So I get out of the car and immediately notice this 20-something-year-old guy standing on the opposite side of the road facing me. This being a derelict area, and with me being rushed, I thought nothing of it, as it's not too uncommon to see derelicts hanging around the streets. But as I started walking around the car to the passenger side, I found him behind me. He asked me what the time was, and I said it was about 11-ish. This still didn't have me on edge, as I was used to this kind of stuff, but as I was opening the door to get the pizza, a jolt of suspicion came over me, as I noticed he was still behind me, not saying anything. Looking back at it now, I find it unnerving at how subtle this feeling was, and how close I was to ignoring it. But I'm glad I didn't. I, while trying to act nonchalant, quickly closed the passenger door, walked around to the driver's side, hopped in, locked the door, turned on the car and put it in drive. I felt like I was being overly cautious, but sure enough, he pops around to my side of the car. At this point, I feel pretty safe, and dare I say, proud of my decision-making. So I cracked the window to get to the bottom of this. Guy, do you have the time on you? Second time he's asked this. Me, it's 11 o'clock. There was an awkward pause. Guy, can you please give me a lift? I need to get to my friends, and it's where you're delivering. What? Me, no. Guy, well, I know whose pizza that is. It's my friend's, down the road. I'll show you where it is if you give me a ride there. The conversation went on, but you get the idea. This guy was persistent. I eventually told him to get out of here, and I was calling the police. I closed the window and started dialing. As I was speaking to the police, he started yelling and banging on the window really hard. Thankfully, he eventually left, and the police came and searched for him while I delivered the pizza. Stuff like that happened every now and then, but despite most of it being immature sexual harassment, I thankfully learned to be alert whilst on the job. I don't know what he wanted, but I'm glad I didn't find out. I used to work at a hotel, and I use the word loosely. It was more of an inn that was in a sleepy beach town in Southern California, but it had plans to be part of someone's chains of hotels or something. The property was very small, but in a seriously idealistic location, so it was close enough to the water to be expensive, but not big enough to have more than one front desk employee working at a time. My sister and I worked there together, and we shared one manager, aside from the housekeeping, but they got to leave a lot sooner than the unfortunate front desk, who worked nights. I used to work mornings, which is a lot more hectic considering checkouts at this particular property were tough. Plus, we didn't have a lot of things like dishwashers, so you had to wash everything by hand. My sister worked the nights, and I took the mornings, but I didn't mind the extra work, only because I didn't feel safe in the hotel at night. The area didn't have a lot of crime, it's just something about the way the front desk area looked. We had the front desk, and in front of it would be the breakfast area. It had tons of windows. It was more windows than wall, and you could easily see out into the ocean and into the garden, as well as the stairs that came up into the lobby. In the daytime, it was really charming. But at night, it always felt unsettling to me. Especially since you worked the night shift, you had to stay till 11 p.m. at night, without even closing the front door. Now again, this wouldn't be a big deal, but we had no security, no cameras, not even the housekeeping. It was just you, by yourself, with this black void to look out to while you counted down the hours until you could go home. One night, I've been stuck with the night shift, covering for my sister. I didn't even have my uniform or anything. It was kind of unexpected. For whatever reason, I decided to close the lobby door, and I'm glad I had. The door wasn't locked, so any late-night customers could come in, but none did that night. It finally hit 11, and I was super relieved to get off. I began my end-of-shift duties, rolling the day, setting up for breakfast, etc. When I'd finished everything, I had grabbed my keys and turned to turn off the lights before leaving, when the phone rang. My gut tensed for a second, only because it was so loud, and I was surprised. We were supposed to forward the calls to our manager's phone in case someone got locked out of the room and we had to come down and help them. No electric plastic keys used here, lady and gents. Old-fashioned metal keys for everyone. I pretty quickly calmed myself down because I was more annoyed than anything and stepped around the desk to answer the phone. I gave the "thank you for calling, this is, how can I help you" line as best as I could for being annoyed, that is. At first, there was nothing. No one said anything. Said hello and asking if anyone was there. I thought it was a dead call or a butt dial, but I could hear the ocean on the other side. It was a particularly windy night, so the waves were louder than usual. I then just hung up. When I went to leave again, the phone rang a second time. I picked up, gave the same line, and I finally got a response. Is there any rooms available? He didn't sound drunk. If anything, he sounded collected. The place was next to a bar, so if it was just some drunk dude, I would have known. He sounded calm, like unnervingly calm. Oh, I'm sorry. We're closing for the night, I responded. It's not uncommon for someone to find our hotel on like some Priceline type thing and try to get us to give them a lower price over the phone. What he continued to say, however, really scared me. And I don't scare easy. Oh, so none are available? No, we're closing. What about the one you're standing in front of? I immediately froze. See, how the lobby is set up is that there's a door also behind the counter, and that door leads to another room that is directly behind the lobby. We're not allowed to close that one either, but I had left it open in case anyone needed help. All of the rooms are outside, like it's not within a contained space. All the halls that lead to other rooms and staircases are outside, so anyone can just walk up and walk around the hotel without being a guest or an employee. So quite literally, anyone can just come off the street and be anywhere in the hotel. It's one of the reasons why I left. I turned and closed the door behind me, locking it, and the front door was already closed as well. No, sir, we're all booked up. If there's anything you need, you'll have to call back in the morning. I was noticeably more scared now. I think my voice even cracked. I was going to hang up before he said something else. I like your tiger. In the creepiest, most slithering voice I think I've ever heard. As I said before, I wasn't wearing my uniform that day. I had a gray shirt that had this rainbow/paint splatter type tiger face on the front. I stared out into the windows before it really hit me. Lights inside the lobby lit it up, so you could see the inside of it, while from being inside you just saw nothing but blackness. He was outside of the lobby, probably most likely staring in through the glass. I didn't get to say anything before he asked, "Is the front door locked?" I threw the phone out of my hand and ran around the desk, locking the deadbolt in the front door. I began to what I assumed was have a panic attack. I was crying and freaking out. I had never been so scared at one time in a really long time. Then banging came from the door, really aggressive and angry banging. I was too afraid to grab the phone that I had thrown. It had been flung towards the window, and I didn't know if he was going to break one of them or not. So I grabbed my cell phone and locked myself into the bathroom that was right next to our desk. I called my aunt, who lived like less than a mile away. I know I should have called the police, but I was really young at the time, and I was out of my mind, and she was a black belt, so I knew she could defend herself. I called her and barely was able to tell her what was happening between my crying and freaked out breathing. Normally, this shouldn't have scared me so bad, but I've dealt with the stalkery type before, and it felt the exact same way as it did before. Nightmarish. It wasn't until she called me again and told me she was outside the lobby, and that it was locked, that I had left the bathroom. I knew I made a mistake by not calling the police because he wasn't there anymore by the time she'd gotten to the door. So I have no idea what he looks like, and our policy of never keeping the door closed didn't change, even after I'd reported to the owners what happened. I've had some issues with safety after that, but none as scary as this one. If it was some drunk, I would have been fine. He sounded like he fully knew what he wanted to do, whatever it was. After that, I didn't work the night shifts anymore. So whoever talked to me, let's not meet.